What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to one of the last interviews of our series here at Cannes today. We've got Todd Ulise, who's the Chief Revenue Officer of the Nomix Group. We had the opportunity to sit down with their founder at Possible a while back, and Todd is recently on the scene as the new CRO, so he's going to walk us through a little bit of his first 6 months and how things are going so far. Todd, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Dylan. I really appreciate it. Definitely last day of Possible. How's Possible been? I said Possible. You literally just referenced
That's
Possible.
Okay.
So we'll have the editors cut that one out.
I planted the seed. Cannes is always fun for me because I'm generally focused on the North American market. But it's my opportunity to come out here and have global conversations, connect with a lot of people. It's a lot of walking. It's pretty hot this year, but we survived, and it was pretty good for us. How about you guys?
It's been great. I think I saw a stat that Wednesday was the hottest day ever in the history of
recorded
France.
in France.
So it's wonderful to be here. It's the humidity is what gets everybody, where it's almost 100% humidity and 95 degrees. So Cannes been great. Nomix has been great about kind of taking. We solve the problem of fragmentation through commerce everywhere, and ultimately you'd be able to activate with performance economics, cross-channel, especially kind of in the creator economy. People are not seeing that. They're starting to adapt it a little bit more in the U.S., but kind of seeing it globally. We've gotten so much receptivity here. So Cannes been amazing, and I will not say Possible again because we're at Cannes.
Awesome, man. So, we talked a little bit about your background, 3 successful exits as a sales lead or a business development lead running the P&L, and now doing it for the 4th time. Usually when you have that kind of a track record, you start to have options when you decide what to do next. What was it about Nomix that was exciting for you to kind of come in and give it another go?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll kind of give a background, and I've been in digital for about 26 years, so I started when I was 4. So I got into the internet in 2000 when the economy was not very strong.
Sure.
There was a dot-com bubble, and people were freaking out. It was the lowest revenue-driving industry of any media. Now it's significantly the highest.
Yep.
And the problem at that point in time was, publishers needed to get paid or they'd go out of business. It was, so that gave rise to, they wanted revenue. So we built, a company as that called Traffic Marketplace, ended up running the pub team. We did a performance marketplace. We performed by selling to clients on a performance metric and acquiring media on a CPM. So it was kind of this performance arbitrage space.
Yeah.
Solved the problem of performance economics, scaled the business, sold it to a company called Vivendi Universal.
Yeah, I remember.
Back in 2001, 2002. Ended up leaving. I had a friend of mine from college who produced a guy named Dane Cook, who's a big
comedian.
Comedian, and he's like, hey, I know comedy, or I know marketing. Can you help me do some marketing for us? I was like, well, who's that? So ended up breaking him. And developed a portfolio of comedy assets. Comedy marketing was underserved at the time. People weren't really focusing on comedy because it wasn't exciting. I'm kind of bringing comedy back. Streaming content. Building a couple content sites. So kind of served that, and ended up Dane becoming the biggest selling comedy release since Jimmy Carter was president.
Crazy.
So hey, that works.
Yeah.
Figure out why that works and replicate it, repeat it, scale it, then ultimately sell it. And we talked about influencers. We go to the post office, mail DVDs and CDs to bloggers, get them to do the write-up. How do you charge Viacom for that? Yeah. So kind of built that up, exited that, and then about 2010, 2011, I realized that. As a full-service agency, you're paying Google. My margins were thinner and thinner every year on Google. Yeah. So, I ended up, after I exited that and sold that agency, went to a company that kind of had just, rebranded to a company called ad.net, and, ended up building, search was monopolistic by Google. It hurt me as an agency. It hurt brands from margin compression. So built an incremental search ecosystem outside of Google, kind of powering little search widgets on websites. Did that for about 14 years. Sold a majority share to a private equity firm in New York about 5 years ago. Was doing that, company was obviously doing fine, and what else is out there? I wasn't necessarily looking, but I saw the opportunity at Nomix and kind of saw what Nomix is doing, what Nomix was building. I was like, wow, this company's been on a rocket ship. Yeah. And kind of seeing what problem does Nomix solve. It really solves media fragmentation. Media is so much more fragmented now, and it's going to continue to get even more fragmented. And how does Nomix solve it? It solves it with commerce everywhere. And what is everywhere? It could be, how Nomix started with Shopnomics, where it started in the performance commerce space, driving last year over $4 billion in GMV. And this company has scaled so fast, it's a different skill set to go from scaling to 1 point to 50 million to 500 million for infrastructure. So it's kind of putting all the pieces together. And what we're very bullish on is the creator economy.
Wow.
And obviously we have partnerships with a significant amount of creators. We also have an AI content production studio, on our side, where we can kind of help brands, decrease content production costs. So, but everything is driven by performance economics. And when we have performance economics, as you have more inventory coming in, be it creators, be it anything, when there's more supply, prices are going to go down. It's going to lead more towards a performance infrastructure. And we've built that performance infrastructure for, at scale. And then what that ultimately allows us to do is increase market share, help brands move the needle, and drive true revenue and true value. So, this has been an amazing 6 months. I tell my friends and family this is the most fun I've had in almost 30 years working.
That's
when
great.
you use the word fun around work, people kind of like look at you like, what?
Well, in my opinion, work's got to be fun, or
Exactly.
you're probably not in the right place, right? I've always had fun.
You get to the point where in your life where it's, it's like you got to enjoy what you're doing, like the people you're working with.
100%. So, so let's talk about creator economy. I think, you rightly identified that creators are, ubiquitous. There's so many of them now. You can find them in every category. 68% of Gen Z wants to be a creator. My 12-year-old daughter has 55,000 followers on Instagram. It really is, a ubiquitous space. So you can when supply becomes prolific in that way, advertisers get to kind of decide the terms in which they're going to work with creators and kind of mold them into the part of the Swiss Army knife that works the best for their brand. When you talk about performance economics, are you really talking about affiliate marketing as you think about creators? And, I think it's kind of interesting. I've spent a lot of time investigating social shopping and kind of live stream shopping and the trends that are coming out of Asia. And what's really interesting is, we like to talk about in the States, like, oh, well, this creator is brand, don't worry about conversions with them. They're good at brand awareness. And then these other groups of creators, like, they're really good at affiliate. So it's like performance versus brand. But in China, there's no such thing as an influencer that can't sell products. Like, if you can't sell products, you're not an influencer. Mm-hmm. So I'd be curious, as you see the creator economy evolving, also moving from this idea of being a, what was once a follower-based economy in creators, now being a algorithm-based economy. Every creator has the same opportunity essentially to go viral because the algorithms get a vote. It's not based on how much following you have. It's based on how well your asset performs. Does it resonate? Does it find the community in which it needs to go and get earned media in? And do you have the right paid strategy to amplify that? Be curious, as you've seen the creator economy change, how are brands thinking about needing their creator marketing spend to drive performance, but also understanding that only 5% of transactions are tracked back to an affiliate today in e-commerce?
There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah,
I actually completely agree with everything you said.
Yep.
First off, your 12-year-old daughter has about 55,000 more followers than my 12-year-old daughter, who is not on Instagram right now.
Yeah, we made my kids are, they're also actresses and models, so we kind of made a deliberate decision that, for the career paths that they're currently on the trajectory, we would allow it. But yeah, I know there's a lot of parenting show is a whole nother show, and I know there are a lot of...
We can do a number 2, raising children in Southern California and
Exactly.
and the industry, in the other industry.
Totally.
So, but it's going to completely mirror China.
Yep.
So you use the term affiliate. To me, affiliate's just a performance tracking methodology.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I ultimately want to change the affiliate name. Mm-hmm. Most of my career has kind of been performance via CPC, CPM, agency selling.
Yep. Outcomes based.
Yeah, exactly. Shifting to an outcomes based economy. I even said this, at Possible, referencing Possible again. Mm-hmm. We've shifted towards an outcomes based economy, but the problem is, I like to call it. It's not necessarily a technology problem because the tracking is there.
Yep.
It's a people problem what channel does this fit in? Does it fit in social? Does it fit into a vanity buy? Does it fit into a PR branding buy vis-a-vis followers? Does it fit into an affiliate? What's going to ultimately happen is going to be more the China type model. It's going to come towards, if you can't sell anything, people are going to want vanity buy, and especially, everybody's going to demand outcomes based.
Yeah.
And it's really, it needs a better operating system. I don't even want to call it affiliate. I'll call it just outcomes based.
Yeah.
You think about it, from 26 years old, I said, okay, there's CPA, CPM, CPC. Ultimately, is CPC a charter? It doesn't matter how you price it. If somebody pays, if it goes into a social channel, say social, search social, you pay 10 cents a click, but ultimately you have to have a conversion. It just needs more of, traditionally ad serving, a DSP. You need to commoditize. You need to standardize as much as you can. You can always standardize banners a lot easier than creator influence. There's other pieces that can be.
Yeah.
But it has to have.
Well, to
true
some
value
degree,
tracking.
it's like vertical short form or long form, right? Or kind of but there are, maybe a few other formats, but those are the big ones.
But from kind of taking a step back from a full industry standpoint. Think about, we're talking about, putting an article on BuzzFeed, putting an article on some of the sites. How much time does somebody spend with that? Maybe 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds. How much time does somebody spend with a creator that they love a day? Maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? But the dollars are, because that's easily trackable. I can put a blue embedded link for Target on this site and drive $10,000 in revenue.
Doesn't really matter, right? It's like a click is a click, no matter how much attention span it took to drive the click.
Exactly, and that's not really the right way to look at media.
Yeah, right.
And
dwell time is important, completion rates.
Yeah, exactly, and
quality of the media. YouTube player is maybe more valuable than a small player on a banner site or something like that, or embedded in a banner.
And the beauty with creators is, a brand can have true engagement and sell whatever the heck they want. Target's going to know their margins on each of their products. If they say, okay, we want to push more owned and operated, let's do a partnership with this, versus whatever the user decides to buy. You have more of a rich engagement, and it's a two-way engagement.
Yeah.
It's unlike TV where you push an ad out. It's a one-way engagement. So you have the opportunity to have a two-way engagement, and then it's catching up. It's all about when product market fit is right. There's so many ideas I've heard. There's really no new business models. There's new widgets to capture the users, right?
Sure.
New mousetraps rather.
Yep.
And you have to, the ideas of creator economy, influencers always been there, but now we're starting to see a shift, and people don't happen over time, because you think about how agencies and brands put their budgeting centers together, right? It's, you have this team, you have this team, you have this team, and I call it, who stole my cookies? Everybody's trying to compete with each other. Why? To justify their jobs, right? So it's not necessarily the tracking or the technology problem, it's the people problem. And it takes a strong-willed, holistic CMO, at a brand, or, a senior leader at an agency or an investment lead to say, okay, this doesn't matter. Your affiliate, your social, your search, your PR budget, it doesn't really matter. It's what the brand wants. It's ultimately where the dollar's moving, where's the attention coming from, how rich is the engagement. But going back to the point that you raised, it's really going to kind of mirror China, within, you can't time things, but it's happening a lot sooner.
Well, for a long time, the American market predicted that live selling would never catch on because celebrities or influencers in the U.S. aren't going to do QVC like drops, and then all of a sudden you have some influencers doing $1 million streams. So I think everything catches up. Everything follows the money at the end of the day, and I don't care. A lot of people said at one point, movie stars would never do television, and now it's the best content in the world is TV, in my opinion.
Yeah, we can go on another podcast. This is literally the golden age. I honestly think this is the golden age of television as well,
for sure.
Because the money coming in, and what did Tom Cruise say in Jerry Maguire? Show me the money.
Yep.
It's like if somebody does one thing, you think about it too. Now, from the celebrity standpoint, think about it. You would pay a celebrity, you pay a Kardashian to promote it. And a product, and the car's like, well, why don't I own the product, right? So you can kind of see the conversions of, if a Kardashian or a Ryan Reynolds gets behind a brand, then they have an incentive to own their marketing channel.
Then they're not in a pay-to-play arrangement or a license. They're actually Or like think about the Paul brothers, right? With what they did with Prime. I think they had a 5-year earnout up to 35% if they hit their metrics, and I think they completed their earnout in a year and a half because they really adopted Prime as a lifestyle brand, and like, you know, they lived the brand. It wasn't a sponsor of their, you know, transition into champion sports and boxing and fighting. It was, you know, the brand that they love to talk about every single day. And you know, the earnout acceleration, I think, really proved that, you know, creator stake or creators doing their own things or collaborations with creators that have skin in the game or the model. It's where, you know, the creators want to be, and ultimately the influencers that matter are all willing to do that. They're not going to put up their hand and say, "Oh well, you know, I'm not willing to take a risk." They, you know, they're business people too. They're willing to take risks if it is going to be more profitable or more lucrative than the guaranteed thing that's less.
Well, and that's why, I mean, you know, people want to make connections, right? Especially in a post-pandemic world. I think, you know, this is why, you know, you look back at, okay, what did we learn from, you know, being in our houses for a year, you know, and not having to have the human connection, and you know, people going to offices less. You know, you want to have more of this connection. How do you extrapolate what connection means? Okay, and connection can mean, you know, more of events like
IRL.
Yeah, exactly that. But it also can mean a virtual connection, digital connection. If I am, you know, obviously, you know, if I love following boxing, if I love following, you know, I'm going to follow, you know, Jake Paul, and then ultimately, I would support the products that he has. And what does it really mean, kind of, when you unwind things a little bit more? It's authenticity.
Yeah.
If I find this person that I like has some shared core values that I do, you know, and they live their truth, it's authentic to me. Therefore, I would purchase that product. So, but it comes back to just connection. It comes back to, like, that's where it comes back to, and that's where the smart brands, you know, understand the culture, understand the connection, and, you know, that's why it's not just, you know, sticking a text link on a site, which, you know, drives revenue, but it's not it's not long-term brand stability. And that's why I think the live shopping, the China model, is going to be where it goes, and I think the technology will, you know, it kind of already is there, but it will be able to track it. Exactly. And you know, I mean, if you look at, you know, you even said affiliate before, it's really just performance economics. It's just a payments framework.
Yeah, totally.
For lack of a better term. And, but
it's an incentive, right? Like, my wife screams at me whenever I book a flight and I don't tell her ahead of time so she could book it on Rakuten or whatever. And it's because she wants free Nordstrom's gift cards. I would have made the purchase either way. She just wants the incentive. The challenge, so it's tracking, really.
The challenge with you know, and you know, totally, and like the challenge with a lot of media, it's like, okay, is that transactions are always valuable, but let's say she gets 3%. Well, you know, the goal of the airline would be 3% lower. You know, it's just math. You know, it's just math, and it's, you know, understanding all the, you know, the interactions in order to use a credit card points or use, you know. So, but yeah, no, it's happening a lot sooner. You know, this year I'm the most optimistic, and we're completely bullish upon that. And, you know, part of what we want to do is help, you know, if we can work with creators and help creators get paid what they're worth, because I think they're drastically underpaid. Being an advocate of if you come in with a set of core values and goals and say, I can help people make a livable wage, I want to help people eat, who's going to argue with that approach?
It's a good fairness, you know, for everybody to win, right? Well, Todd, pleasure. Really great to sit down with you and learn a little bit about your thinking. Congratulations on the new role, and best of luck with it. Sounds like you guys are onto some exciting things. I think the future predicts that we'll probably run into each other again. Seems to be the trend. So maybe CES. I don't know when it might be after our summer vacation months. But if folks at home want to follow along with what Nomix Group is doing, your portfolio of companies, or follow along as you build, where do you want to send people to stay in touch?
Yeah, LinkedIn. It's always the best.
That's the spot.
Yeah.
All right, Todd, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Dylan.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Finding the right audience to build a media plan requires hours of research. And optimizing campaigns is time-consuming and a bit of a guessing game. That's why we built technology to do it for you.